Welcome on in to the All Aussie Rules Football Podcast. This is episode number 36 of 2026, round 13. I don't know why I said that so weird. Round 13 preview episode. We're going to be going through all the matches today of round 13. There's 8 matches coming up this weekend. 2 teams have the bye in Richmond and GWS. Every other team's playing. We're going to go through all the games. Hopefully find you all the winners, as we do each and every Thursday on this podcast. If you're new around here, I'm John. I watch every game, so you don't have to, although feel free to watch every game. Make sure you leave comments. Let me know your thoughts. We'll be going through our highest rated players so far this year by position in this episode to start it off, and then we'll jump into the previews for all 8 matches. We'll round it out with our tips for this weekend's games. So make sure that you stick around, like this video or this thing. Give the podcast a rating, depending what platform you're on, obviously. It goes on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Don't forget to follow or subscribe. And sit back, enjoy, and let's jump into it. Also, actually, before we keep going, don't forget to go over to the YouTube if you're not there already and check it out. Give it a subscribe and check out some of the other content we put up on there. We do... at the moment, we're going through mid-season reviews for every team as they get to the bye. So there was 4 last week. GWS is also up. Richmond will be up tomorrow on Friday. So come back, check that out. And the rest of the teams will be out as the byes happen. It's the big freeze this weekend as well. So don't forget to get your beanies. Support a massively important cause. More so this year than ever before. But yes, if you can, don't forget to support an incredible cause. Big freeze this weekend. Let's jump into the content for you today. Starting off with our highest rated backman so far through 12 rounds so far this year. Highest rated players by position, general defenders first. If you're new around here, we do rate every single player, every single game based on 30 different stats. A lot goes into it, and it spits out an average. And these are the highest rated players by position. So, general defenders so far this year, Nick Blakey leads the way, just ahead of Wayne Malira. Archie Roberts in 3rd, Tom Stewart 4th, and Jack Sinclair in 5th. Pretty tight between the top 5. Key defenders is a little bit different, because Cal Wilkie has put an absolute margin on the rest at the moment. Cal Wilkie leads the way. James Sicily in 2nd. Tom McCartan has moved up to 3rd. He's having a fantastic season. He was huge on the weekend. Harris Andrews, 4th. And Aaliyah at the moment, right behind Harris Andrews in that 4 and 5 spot. So that is a backman. We'll move to the forwards. And there they are. General forwards, obviously, some of these do play some midfield minutes as well. But up the top, it's Joel Frazier from the Bulldogs. Then it's Matthias Philippou from Saints. Paul Curtis from the Kangaroos. How good's Murdoch been from West Coast, just quietly? He was huge again on the weekend. He's putting together a fine first season in the AFL. He's fit in perfectly, so he's been very good. He's currently 4th highest rated general forward. And Nick Watson is in 5th spot. Key forwards, moving right along. Josh Tracy is a mile ahead and has been pretty much on top for the last 7 or 8 weeks. He's having a very, very good season. Doesn't kick as many goals as some of the others on this list, but he does a lot of work up in that forward line. Contributes to a lot of the other key forward goals that they get as well. Jeremy Cameron, number 2. He started a little bit slow, but got things going around 7 weeks ago. And now he's been sitting in 2nd most of the last 5 or 6 weeks. Jack Gunston 3rd. We know what he's doing. Every week he's consistently performing very well. Shannon Neal 4th. Another cat, so 2 cats in the top 5. And Aaron Cadman is a fair gap behind Shannon Neal at the moment. Over 10 rating points. But he's starting to show some of the signs of how good he is going to be. Moving to the midfield, inside mids first. Obviously, there's a lot of good players that aren't on this list. But Heaney moves to number 1. Huge last week. He's got the 2 highest rated games by any player this season. The highest one was last week against Richmond. he's been huge. Been huge all year. Bailey Smith in second. He's got even better than last year. Last year, his disposal wasn't always quite up to scratch, but I think he's really improved that this year. And so far, the second highest rated inside mid in the comp. Petrarca is third. He's been good. Bontempelli sitting fourth. Obviously, a couple down games from him about a month or so ago has certainly hurt his top rating. Otherwise, he'd probably be second. And Zach Butters is in fifth. Outside mids, at the moment, it's pretty tight. We've got Joe Berry. And then we got Chase Burgoyne from Port Adelaide. And then we got Matt Carroll from Carlton. Matt Roberts from the Swans. And Harvey Thomas, who was really good on the weekend for GWS. Starting to find his feet as well this season, as are the Giants as a whole. So that's your top five. Only position left to look at is the rucks. And there they are. We've got four way out in front. And then a big gap to the rest. So Max Gawn just ahead of Tristan, the X-Man, Jerry. Brodie Grundy, who had last week off, which probably wasn't a good week to have off for his ratings because he probably would have got a massive score. Luke Jackson, fourth. Those four are really, really quite close to each other. You can see any one of those four being the number one rated ruckman this season. It's not going to come from anywhere else. Who edges away? We'll see. Max Gawn just tends to end up in front each year, and that might be what happens again. And Tim English, fair way back in fifth at the moment. But he was number 2 last year in our rating system, so he's certainly struggling a little bit with the new rules. Obviously has had injury issues as well with concussions and whatnot. So our top 10 rated players in the AFL after round 12 is as such. Isaac Heaney takes the lead. He was not leading last week. He is now new number 1 in the game. Isaac Heaney jumps 2 points ahead of Cal Wilkie from Skilda. Max Gawn in third. This is our ruck section. Max Gawn, Tristan Cherry, and Brodie Grundy, 3, 4, 5. 6 is Bailey Smith, back to the midfielders with Bailey Smith and Petrarca in 7. Luke Jackson's in 8. Bontempelli and Zach Butters round out the top 10 after 12 games. We'll continue to update these rankings and show you the rankings most episodes, or at least in our preview episodes. In our review episodes, which go live every Monday, we do our Brownlow leaderboard and MVP leaderboard as well, so go check them out. They're on every Monday episode of the podcast. I think that's all the preview stuff. Let's jump into the games and what we think of them. Slightly upgraded, updated graphics as well, so let me know what you think of them. Thursday night we head to Adelaide Oval. This is going to be a cracking game of football. Adelaide hosting Geelong, 8th v 4th on the ladder. Geelong have a great record against the Crows. There's no doubt about it. They've won 9 of the last 10, including the last 6 against the Crows. I think most people probably remember Gather Round 2025 when these two teams met over in Adelaide, obviously, Gather Round. And Adelaide kicked away early. They led quite comfortably, I think, in the second quarter. And then Geelong just flew over the top and ended up winning by 19 points. They have already met this year, which was in round 3. So a little bit ago. Not that long, though. What are we? We're round 13, so 10 weeks ago they met. And Geelong got over the line only by 8 points. That was at GMHBA Stadium. They kicked poorly, though, the Cats, that day. They led most of the way. Crows got a sneaky little lead early in the last, but Geelong were just too good in the end. Bailey Smith was huge, had 40 touches. They couldn't stop him. What else happened in that game? I don't know. I can't remember. I don't think there was anything too exciting, but Bailey Smith was Geelong's best. Tom Stewart was good. Max Holmes was good. So Adelaide just couldn't stop the big guns for Geelong, certainly in the midfield. So yeah, that's not that long ago. Obviously, only 10 weeks ago. Go through some of the numbers here on the screen. Obviously, these are using our AllAussieRules Rating System for teams. Offensively, Geelong do win this one, 2nd to 7th. Defensively, pretty even, 6v7. Overall, 4th v 7th. Form, so that's the last 5 weeks ratings, has Geelong in 2nd best team and Adelaide 4th best. Obviously, Geelong did go down last week against the Blues, which did hurt that rating a little bit. Otherwise, they probably would have been number 1. And the difficulty of their schedule so far this year, Geelong have had the 2nd hardest, according to our ratings, whereas Adelaide have been the 9th hardest in the competition through the first 12 rounds. Teams have been named for this game. They won't have been named for any others. Obviously, this is the Thursday night game. So teams will, for the rest of the games, will be announced just before the kickoff of this game. Coming in for the Crows, Taylor Walker's back. He's going to replace Riley Thilthorpe up forward for the Crows. So they get a big in, but obviously a bigger out in that regard. And the other out is Isaac Rankin. So that's 2 big outs for the Crows. And debutant and mid-season draftee Hugo Hall-Khan is coming in to the team for his debut. He was only drafted 8 days ago at time of recording, 9 days before this game will be played, and he's getting his debut. So that is huge news for him. Huge achievement. We'll see how he goes. Crows obviously pretty excited by his prospects. We'll see how he fits in, what sort of role they've got for him, but that's going to be the big one out of this game. We'll see how he goes on debut. On the other side of the fence, the Cats are making 3 changes. Jack Martin, Jack Bowes, and Oliver Wiltshire all coming in, and going out from last week's loss is Lawson Humphries, Brad Close, and Mitchell Edwards all out. So that's the teams. Other things to go through on this game. I think on paper Geelong win. If we're being completely honest, if Geelong are at their best, they win. I think Geelong are probably on paper one of the best teams in the competition, if not the best. Just sometimes they don't bring it. It's happened probably definitely 2 times this year. The Port Adelaide one and opening round against Gold Coast, they just didn't bring it. But then other weeks they look absolutely sensational. They smacked Collingwood only a few weeks ago. They smacked Brisbane the next week. And Carlton just tends to be a bogey side for them. So I think we kind of forget about that game. And we look at the history of this matchup and see that Geelong are a very, very good team against the Crows. Doesn't matter where they're playing. They just get it done. And they have done for the last 6-7 years. Obviously, I can't believe I just said that. Obviously, in that time, the Cats have been a much better team in terms of success. Like, obviously, 2020 they lost a grand final. 2022 they won a premiership. 2025 they lost a grand final. So 3 times in that period they've made grand finals. And Adelaide missed finals all of those years except for 2025. So they should probably have a good record, the Cats, against the Crows. But even last year and so far this year, like, they've met twice in that time, and the Cats did get over the line both times. So that's swaying me towards the Cats, but not confidently. You chuck in the Thilthorpe and Rankin outs as well. The Rankin one, I think, is a big, big one. We'll see how they can cover that. As I said, offensively, Geelong are definitely the better team. Defensively, I think the 2 teams are pretty similarly matched. So that will be interesting how that shapes up. Neither team wins clearances. Crows don't over-possess the ball, don't have the ball in their forward half as much as a team like Geelong. So we'll see how that plays out. But I think if Geelong are at their best, they win. It's going to take a good effort from the Crows to win this one, I think. But we'll see. It should be maybe one of the best games of the weekend. There's a few good games, but this is certainly one of the good ones, I think. Jumping into Friday night football, and this is another matchup that we've already seen this season. It's going to be Hawthorn Bulldogs Friday night at the MCG. If this was at Marvel, you'd probably be thinking maybe Bulldogs are a pretty solid chance. But at the MCG, you'd have to be swaying more towards Hawthorn. Last time they met was Gather Round. So what was that? 8 weeks ago. Crazy. Hawthorn absolutely smacked them that day, won by 40 points. The Bulldogs could not kick straight, but also, if you think back to that, that was right at the period where the Bulldogs were struggling for players. They were struggling with injuries. They didn't have a ruckman that day, no Tim English. Rory Lobb played mostly ruck. And Ned Reeves and Lloyd Meek absolutely destroyed them. Jai Newcomb had 14 clearances. It was just an absolute field day in the midfield for Hawthorn. They shared the goals around. It was a really good team performance that day. But that was a lot stemmed from that no ruckman for the Bulldogs. So I think that was a big issue for the Doggies. What else have we got here? Looking at our numbers on the screen, Bulldogs rate really poorly because of that 4-5 week block where they just got absolutely thrashed by teams week in, week out. They've kind of steadied. The last 5 weeks have been a lot better, at least in the results column. They've won 3 of 4. They've beaten Collingwood. They've beaten Melbourne. Both of those by less than a kick, and they beat Port Adelaide by less than a kick, but lost by 12 points to Carlton. Whereas Hawthorn, they're going fine. Across the season, they're really good. Their last 5 weeks, maybe not as good as previously. They drew with Collingwood, lost to Fremantle, lost to Melbourne, but then beat Adelaide down in Tassie, and then St Kilda they smacked last weekend. So that's the story of their last 5 weeks. I think clearly Hawthorn are the better team right now. If they play at their best, they'll be tough to beat. You do got to take into account, though, that this will be a vastly different Bulldogs team than last time they met. I fully expect to see, well, if Tim English is playing, I'm not sure if he is or not. I believe he is. But that's a good start at least. I think also Cody Waitman might be playing his first game in about two and a bit years, which is crazy to think. We haven't seen him for so long, but that will be a big occasion for him. Hopefully he'll probably play a little bit of limited minutes, you'd think, but hopefully he can play all right and go have a good first hit out back. But we'll be tipping Hawthorn in this one, I think, quite comfortably. They should be winning this one, I think. Jump into Saturday football. How costly could this game be for the Roos? A team that is trying to push towards finals, and they've sold a home game to Fremantle. It is at Hands Oval, so it's not obviously a ground that Fremantle play typically, but yeah, it's a bit of a free kick in a lot of ways, but Fremantle don't really need the free kicks at the moment because they're absolutely flying. It's been forever since they've lost a game. So long, in fact, it was round 1 was their one and only loss for this season so far. Kangaroos, they're coming off the bye. What to make of their season, I don't know. We've had some ups and downs, I guess. It was looking bad going into the bye, but then they turned that around a bit last week when they, or the week before, sorry, when they had that really strong second half against Gold Coast and won that one by 6 points. They finally got a decent win against a decent opposition. So that kind of got them going a little bit. So that's a positive for sure for the Roos. Coming out of the bye, playing Fremantle over in WA, this isn't going to be easy by any stretch of the imagination for the Kangaroos. So you even look at the head-to-head record, last 10, it's 8-2 for Fremantle. Offensively, Fremantle are better. Defensively, Fremantle are the best team in the competition. Form over the last 5 games, Fremantle first, North Melbourne 15th. So big difference there as well. Scheduled difficulty, both teams have had a pretty comfortable, easy-ish draws so far. Fremantle sitting 18th, so the easiest schedule in the competition. Meanwhile, the Kangaroos are like 5th easiest in the competition. I don't think there's too much else to say about this matchup. Obviously, Fremantle were flying. You'd expect them to win this one. They've played some good teams, and they just keep winning, so we kind of expect that again. Kangaroos, as I said, have turned themselves around a little bit with that performance last week or 2 weeks ago, after a tough run against Giants, Geelong, Sydney, and Adelaide. But this is going to be a really tough one. They need to get at least one of the 2 wins over these 2 weeks in Perth, I reckon, if they genuinely want to play finals. If they lose both of these home games, then yeah, it's going to be a tough ask to find 7 wins through the rest of the year. It's possible. It certainly won't write them off, but it certainly makes the challenge a lot harder. We got the Q Clash next. It's at People First Stadium on Saturday evening football. 5th on the ladder, Gold Coast versus the quickly falling Brisbane Lions, who are 9th on the ladder. Their last few weeks have been very, very poor. What do we make of them? Both these teams, obviously Gold Coast coming off the bye the week before, they gave up that 40-point lead to the Kangaroos and lost. So their form's not spectacular either. You look at our form ratings and we have Gold Coast 10th and Brisbane 16th. So that really reads quite poorly at the moment. Brisbane lost the last 3. Against Geelong, GWS and Fremantle. So good teams, but that GWS one was a absolute blowout. Whereas Gold Coast were looking good, heading towards the bye, beat GWS, beat St Kilda, beat Port Adelaide. And they were 40 points up on the Kangaroos, and then they went to their bye about an hour and a half too early and end up losing that one by 6 points. They're still 7-4. They're in a really strong spot. They're a game ahead of Brisbane. If they can get this Q Clash, which they don't have a great amount of success in Q Clashes against Brisbane over the last couple of years, but if they can get this win, that really sets up their their run home, because they've already had their bye, so it's just a clean run from here. As I said, Brisbane have a really good record. They've won 8 of the last 10 matchups between the 2 teams, including the last time they met, which was the semi-final last year when Brisbane destroyed them to the tune of 53 points. That was at the Gabba, of course. Gold Coast did win one of the Q Clashes last year, round 20. They did a really good performance where they smacked Brisbane. That was their home game. The 2 teams play very different games of football. One is a contested and clearance dominant team in Brisbane. The Gold Coast Suns are not that. They are one of the lower ranked teams in both clearances, contested football. So how that shapes up here, we'll see. Gold Coast get a lot of their scoring from turnover. Meanwhile, Brisbane are pretty even between the 2 disciplines in turnover and stoppage, but do very well out of stoppage as well. Defensively, I think Gold Coast have been the better team this year, but that's certainly helped over the last, say, 4 weeks, where Brisbane have been quite poor defensively, which has all stemmed from their midfield, really. Their midfield has not been getting the numbers that they used to, and that's just snowballed into some poor all-round football, really. So this is going to be a fascinating watch. Gold Coast are probably going to be going in as favourites and deserve to be. Just their form's a lot better. It's their home game. These are the ones that Gold Coast should be winning, I think. So that's how I'll be seeing it, and I don't think I'm very likely to change that tip. I reckon I'll be going Gold Coast and staying Gold Coast. Next up, we head back to WA, in fact, for Saturday night football. For West Coast hosting Port Adelaide, 15v16 on the ladder. The Eagles have jumped the power. And another matchup that we've already seen this year. Crazy that it's happening so many times in round 13. 2 low-ranked teams. Port Adelaide have a really good defensive rating so far this year, 4th best in the competition on our numbers. However, if you go right down to the bottom there, you'll see that Port Adelaide do have or have had so far this year, the second easiest schedule in the AFL. Meanwhile, West Coast are sitting right middle pack, 8th. So the fact that they're sitting above Port Adelaide so far is a pretty good sign for the Eagles, if you ask me. Jumping into this match as a whole and what's going to happen. Obviously, these two teams did meet in round 3 this year. That was in Adelaide, and the Eagles did win by 2 points. Cracking performance by the Birds from the West. What else do we need to know about it, really? Port Adelaide obviously have a pretty good record in the matchup historically. They'd won the 4 previous matchups and 6 of the 7 before the one earlier this year. So maybe it was just a bad day for Port Adelaide. They obviously did have a bit of a stinking start to their year. Round 1, they got smacked by North Melbourne. Round 3, they lost to West Coast at home. So things did get better for them. However, they just lost a lot of close games. They could quite easily be at least another 2 or 3 wins on their schedule for the year, but that's not to be. I think we'll see Port Adelaide do pretty well in the clearance game here. They tend to do okay in that area. Contested football is anyone's guess. Neither team is very good in that area of the ground. Port Adelaide, as I said, much better defensively than West Coast. They're conceding just 81.5 points per game, whereas West Coast are conceding almost 4 goals more than that per match. Most numbers suggest Port Adelaide probably should win, but West Coast are playing good football. Like, their last month of football has been really, really quite good after a bad period not that long ago. Their last 3 weeks specifically have been good. They beat GWS. 3 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago, they lost by 10 points to Collingwood in Melbourne. Good result. And then last week, they beat the Bombers by 30. So if they were to win 3 out of 4 and get their tally already to 5 wins, would be huge before the bye. When you look at last year, they only had 1 win for the whole season. So they've certainly improved. Port Adelaide, their last 4 weeks, not fantastic, but at the same time, 2 of those 4 losses were by 2 points or less. 1 point to Adelaide, 2 points to the Bulldogs. The game against Port Adelaide was okay. They had the bye last week. Just before the bye, the game against Carlton was not very good. I think in a world where both teams played near their best, Port Adelaide probably come out on top. However, am I confident we'll see the best from Port Adelaide? Not particularly, to be honest. This is a flip of the coin, really, for me. I think you probably go Port Adelaide if you want to go the safe option. If you want to try and get one back, the Eagles is probably the play. And it certainly wouldn't be a play that I would be saying, like, talking anyone out of, because they definitely can win this one, the Eagles. Sunday football is up next at Sydney, hosting St Kilda at the SCG. Sydney coming off a huge win last week. These two teams last met round 18 last year. The Swans won by 5 points. That was in Melbourne. Haven't played in Sydney since 2023, which, if you remember back to that year, was the year Sydney did not go too well. They missed finals, I believe, that year. And they lost to St Kilda that day by 14 points. Sydney, without too many arguments, are at least a top 2 team in the competition right now. Argue that they're the best. You could argue Fremantle are the best. Sydney are probably, on numbers, the better team just due to some of their big wins. But they've also got away with a couple close games, but so have Fremantle. Offensively, number 1 team. Defensively, number 2, only behind Fremantle. Overall, number 1 in our rating system, that is. Form over the last 5 weeks, is 3rd. 4 wins, 1 loss. That 1 loss was to Geelong. They have had a reasonably easy schedule, and that continues here. It's not the toughest matchup here, playing St Kilda at the SCG. They're really hard to beat at the SCG. There's no doubt about it. Certainly this year, they're playing that ground really well. They know their game, and they're playing it well. St Kilda, on the other hand, they're sitting mid-table on most stats. it's just who they are right now. Their form over the last 5 weeks is 11th. They've lost their last 2 games. They didn't kick a goal in the first half last week. I tell you what, if they don't kick a goal in the first half this week, they're going to be down by more than 50 points. They might be down by almost 100. Anything else worth noting in this game? Both teams pretty good in the clearances. St Kilda, that's probably their best part of their game, is their clearance game. Not so much scoring from clearance, but certainly getting clearances. Contested football numbers, both teams pretty good. Sydney will probably dominate the territory battle. They'll certainly dominate the inside 50 battle, you'd have to think. Shots at goal typically would, you'd think, be going the way of Sydney. They're a high-scoring team. They score, over 4 goals more than St Kilda each week, and they also concede 2 goals less. It's at the SCG. I'm not saying it's impossible that St Kilda win this one, but you'd be a very brave person to be tipping St Kilda. The safe option, it's almost the safest tip of the weekend. Sydney at the SCG against St Kilda, I think, based on what we've seen from St Kilda over recent weeks. They're very, very hard to pick in this one, in my opinion. But that's Sunday afternoon football. We also have Sunday night football this week. It's Essendon Carlton. The 2 teams that have got rid of their coaches already this season. So they're going head-to-head here. They met last in the final round of last year, where Carlton kind of controlled that one and won quite comfortably against the Bombers. The Blues have won 6 of the last 7 between the 2 teams, so they match up pretty well against the Bombers. Their numbers suggest that they should be winning this game quite comfortably. You look across our numbers, at least. Better offensive team, better defensive team, better team in terms of form. Carlton 5th best over the last 5 weeks or 5 games, whereas Essendon are all the way back in 17th over the last 5. The Bombers have gone 0-5 with a couple bad performances in there, and not many good ones. The GWS one was a decent one. Other than that, it's not great. Whereas the Blues over the last 5 weeks, obviously their last 2 games with Ross Lyon were a loss to St Kilda, loss to Brisbane, but they weren't terrible in that Brisbane game. And then 3 games under Josh Fraser have all been wins, beating the Bulldogs by 12, the Blues quite comfortably by 34, and then last week beating the Cats by 4 points. So the form of the Blues certainly a lot better than the Bombers. Good luck picking the Bombers in this. The Blues should win this by probably 5+ goals, I think, if we're being completely honest with ourselves. They match up well against this team. They should win the clearances. They should win the contested football. They'll win the possession rate, time in possession. Offensively, they should be able to score more than the Bombers, and defensively, they certainly would be able to stop the Bombers better than the Bombers will be able to stop them. I don't think this is going to be a great spectacle to watch by any means. Sometimes you get some low-ranked games that are actually quite exciting, but I just don't see this as a pretty game of football. But the Blues should be winning Sunday night football at the MCG this week, I would say. That's not where we wrap up the round, though, because we have Monday football this week. It's a long weekend for the King's birthday. And we got the King's birthday traditional matchup, the Big Freeze for MND, Collingwood, Melbourne, MCG, Monday afternoon football. These 2 teams have played a lot of close games historically, but Collingwood have a very good record at just getting over the line in recent years. They've won 8 of the last 9. Sorry, my math is terrible and my brain apparently is just as bad. But they've won 8 of the last 9 between the 2 teams, and a lot of them have been close. 6 points and 1 point in the 2 matchups last year. 2024, they met twice. Collingwood won both of them reasonably comfortably, so we ignore that year. 2023, they met twice. Collingwood won by 7 points in the final and lost by 4 points in the Queen's birthday game. It was Queen's birthday back then, I think, still. It might have been King's. 2022, Collingwood won by 7 points and 20-odd points. and then 2021, Collingwood won by 17. So the last year, especially, two close ones. Pretty close matchups. And I think that's probably how it's going to shape up again. I certainly can't see Collingwood winning by much. If anyone's going to smack the other team here, it would be Melbourne smacking Collingwood. Looking at our numbers here, Melbourne's numbers, even though they've been winning games of football, have not been great. So they give teams opportunity to beat them, but they just tend to make the opportunities count when it matters, and that tends to be late. They have run away with a couple games after being in arm wrestles most of the way. So their last couple weeks, maybe not fantastic, but also Collingwood have not been in fantastic form either. When you look at the last 5 weeks, Collingwood are a win and a draw, and Melbourne are 2 wins and 3 losses. I think 2 of Collingwood's losses, or actually, 2 losses and the draw, obviously were close. Draw 0. And then lost by 6 points to Sydney and 4 points to Bulldogs. So it could have been a 5-week block where Collingwood did a lot better, but wasted opportunities. On the other side of the fence, Melbourne 5 weeks ago did really well against Sydney, losing by 17 points at the SCG. Then they beat West Coast and Hawthorn, and things were flying. Lost a close one to the Bulldogs. That was at Marvel, though, so we forgive that. And then last week they played in Alice Springs and got quite convincingly beaten by the Giants, but they did kick poorly that day. I think it's no surprise to anyone, or no big news flash to anyone, that Melbourne have been great at the MCG this year. So getting back to the G certainly helps them. It's a game that at the moment the bookmakers have as a dead split, even drawn game. So people are finding this one hard to split. Historically, this matchup, you're probably going Collingwood. I think based on what we've seen so far this year, you're probably going Melbourne, based on the MCG factor and how good they have been at the G. But Collingwood are a team that you can never fully write off. So hopefully it lives up to the hype. Hopefully it goes down to the wire and is a cracking game of football, because it feels like it should probably be a pretty good game of football. Tip whoever you think is going to win. Obviously, that's what you always do, but I can't convince you either way. I will probably be tipping Melbourne, but this is one where I might seesaw a couple times based on, once we see teams, maybe we'll be a little bit more knowledgeable on the situation. But yeah, at the moment, it looks like a close game. It's certainly one that I can see going either way on, I was going to say Sunday, but it's on Monday. Let's jump into our tips for this weekend, and this is how I've got them. We kick off Thursday night, Adelaide Geelong. We're going Geelong by 14 points. Friday night, we're going the Hawks to beat the Bulldogs by 23 points. Then we got North Melbourne against Fremantle. We're going Fremantle. It's over in the West, even though it is a North Melbourne home game. Don't let that confuse you. I'm sure a lot of people will see North Melbourne home and think, oh, maybe we tip North Melbourne. Fremantle in WA. Just back it in. North Melbourne might win it, but it would be a risky punt, I think. So we're going Dockers by 29. Gold Coast Brisbane. The way Brisbane have played the last 3 weeks, you can't tip them. They will bounce back. They're too good not to. But is this the week they do it? I don't know. I'm going Gold Coast by 9. West Coast over Port Adelaide is one of our big upsets of the weekend. As I said, Port Adelaide should probably be favourites and should probably be your tip if you want the safe option. But this is probably your best option to take an outsider this weekend, I think, is West Coast. They've already beaten them once this year, going West Coast by 5. Sydney at the SCG, just lock it in. They shouldn't be losing that one to St Kilda. Got them by 31 points. Essendon, Carlton, the Blues. I said they should win by 5+. I've got them by 40. Get on the Blues. And rounding out the weekend, as I said just moments ago, shapes as being a close game. I'm going Demons by 3 points. It is one that I could see going either way. But yeah, I think we go with Melbourne to round out the weekend. So Geelong, Hawthorn, Fremantle, Gold Coast, West Coast, Sydney, Carlton and Melbourne are the 8 teams that we're predicting to win this weekend. make sure you jump in the comments and let me know who you think's going to win this weekend. That's a wrap on this episode of the All Aussie Rules Football Podcast, episode number 36 of 2026. Don't forget to go check out all the social medias, Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky, TikTok. I know Twitter's not a thing anymore. X. All Aussie Rules. Just search it up. You'll find us. Plenty of content most days of the week. So go check that out. Also, this podcast goes live on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. So make sure you subscribe on your favourite platform. Don't miss an episode. We do 2 episodes every single week. Plenty of football content every week, every day, basically. So yeah, that's about a wrap from me. I'm John. This is the All Aussie Rules Football Podcast. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. And I hope if your team is playing this weekend, they go well. If you've got the bye this weekend, sit back, relax, enjoy some footy, and I'll catch you on the next one.